We'll be getting started in just a minute here. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today for choosing what you want to do or discovering what you want to do, depending on what it shows on the screen, and then going for it. My name's Kathy Bernard, and what we're going to be talking about today is specifically how to figure out the exact job that you want to do and how to align yourself so that you can get that job. And so there's some very specific things. You don't always have to just keep doing the thing that you've always been doing but hated. Or maybe you've always been thinking about stuff that you want to do and you never got around to it. There's just something that's kind of irking you in the back of your mind that you haven't been able to do. And this is going to help you discover what that is. So my name's Kathy Bernard. I'm a career coach and a LinkedIn expert. And I'm also the creator of the Wiser You career system, which is a system that starts with figuring out what you want to do. This is actually module 1 of that program. It's figuring out what you want to do and then taking the active steps as quickly as possible to land the job that you want. Please feel free to invite me to connect. I'm the Kathy Bernard in St. Louis, Missouri, and if you need my email for that, it's Kathy@wiseru.com. And you can visit my website at wiseru.com. Okay, so as I said, this is the module 1 of the Wiser You career system, where I walk people through the job search process in order, which was something that's always bothered me ever since I was driving home from college. I was like, why isn't there anybody that tells me exactly what to do, like every step of the way, so that I minimize my chances of screwing up? I can find the job I want and then take the active steps to do it. So it starts with figuring out what you want to do and walks you through all the way to excelling on the job, like how to do your resume the best possible way, how to do your cover letter, how to do your LinkedIn, everything systematized. Okay, so I created the Wiser You career system because what I found is there's very little training or a lot of confused training where one resume writer will tell you to do it this way and another one will tell you to do that way. It's very disappointing because the employers actually have a preference, and when you find out what the preference is, then you can do your resume to match that. So if you want to check out Wiser You career system, go out to wiseru.com and go to the career system page, watch my little introductory videos and see how this all works. And you can save $25 off on the annual program for that if you use the coupon code JTT25 off. All right, so why did I put this together? As I said, when I was coming home from college a very long time ago, I realized that I was two things that I did not want to be. I was unprepared and I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing or what job I wanted or how to go about getting that job. And I often feel that way, and I talk to a lot of people that are seasoned workers. So this program is not just for recent college graduates. It's for anybody who's kind of wondering what it is they should be doing. And you may be competing against hundreds of candidates, and that's why figuring out what you want to do is so important, because if you're just competing against people and you don't know what you want, you must make all the right moves to prove the job that you want. And 35% of employers say that they can't fill open positions due to a lack of qualified applicants. This is a stat from last year. I imagine that this is actually even higher now. You hear companies crying out that they can't find enough qualified applicants. And I keep saying to them, are you talking to seasoned workers? Are you talking to new grads? Are you talking to people of color? Are you talking to international people? Are you talking to women? Are you talking to veterans? Are you talking to disabled? Because there's a whole lot of us out there that don't fit their particularly perfect view of who to hire, of somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience who happens to look like them. But only 14% of employers believe recent graduates are prepared for the workplace. Only 14%. So that's kind of scary. And some employers will admit that they avoid hiring seasoned workers, those people that are past 40, 50, and beyond, because they fear the high salaries and outdated skills. They think people are overqualified, which is probably another key word for high salaries and outdated skills. They think they will quit or leave soon or maybe even die soon. And they think that we'll be slow or resistant to change. And a lot of this on seasoned workers, I want to say balderdash. There are a lot of good seasoned workers that have the abilities. Their brains did not go dead when they turned 50 years old. And some employers say they avoid hiring recent college graduates. And a lot of it, I think, is because millennials, I think this is ending now, but got a really bad rap that wasn't altogether true. But they found that they were unprepared and lacked those hard skills such as math and writing, the skills needed for the job. And then they also felt like that they lacked soft skills like etiquette, active listening, and stuff like that. They thought they were resistant to overtime. And there may be some truth to that, but there's also some lies to that because everybody's different. They felt like maybe they had a sense of entitlement, like maybe that they were their parents were going to helicopter them away into a good job. Maybe they lack experience and they lack training, which most recent college graduates do. But the thing is there's opportunities out there. That the job situation is good right now. There are a lot of jobs available, but companies have some wrong perceptions or some perceptions that you have to work on. You have to prove that you are prepared and are willing to adapt. If you are a new graduate, you need to say that you're prepared and you know how to do that job. If you are a seasoned worker, you need to show that you're willing to adapt. You're willing to take a job that may pay less money. You're willing to take a job that doesn't have the big title. And frankly, most baby boomers I know are be glad to do either one of those things to get a job. They want to know that you have those solid, hard, and soft skills. You're a good communicator. You're good at math. You're good at working with other people. They want to know that you're going to pitch in, and they want to know that you're willing to be trained and that you may be training yourself now. So despite these employer concerns, which are real, seasoned workers and recent college graduates have many qualities that employers want, and your job is to play those up. So here's what employers said. Here's why they do hire seasoned workers. And the good news is they are hiring seasoned workers lately because they can't find enough people that I call unicorns that fit into their little idea of 3 to 5 years of experience. And the reason why they hire seasoned workers, they say, is because they're loyal, they stick with the job. They're dedicated to their duties and committed to quality. That was a big deal in the baby boomer generation, was that we checked our work, we checked it for spelling, we checked all those things. We're dependable, we show up as a group, we have a strong work record, we have a lot of experience, we have math, reading, and writing skills, and sometimes, people growing up in the world of texts maybe aren't as good at punctuation and grammar. We have experience, of course, and we have an ability to get along. And this isn't just me making this up. This is a source from AARP, who knows a thing or two about seasoned workers. And employers say that they hire grads regularly because of very good reasons as well. They have a low salary compared to others. They have technical abilities, or are able to quickly adapt to technical abilities. You have social media skills, possibly just for personal use, but they think they can teach you the business angles of social media. They find young people to be enthusiastic and innovative, team players that you produce quickly, like maybe you solve that problem in a half hour where it took people who've been there for years, five weeks to do. You figured out a new way of doing it. You're eager to learn. I would say millennials and recent college graduates love training. They're adaptable to change, or at least that's the perception of the boss, and they figure you're going to be around for the long term. Now, all of these things may be true or maybe not true, but that in general is kind of the rule for recent college graduates. So play up all of these things because they truly do like that about you. But they say there's two big reasons that graduates aren't getting hired. And the first one, and I really want you to pay attention to this, is the reason why graduates aren't getting hired is they don't know what they want to do. I hear that all the time. It's like, I can do anything. And then the second thing that I hear is they don't know what job titles match their skills and interests. So we're going to talk about that today, about how you can learn what those titles are. One thing that I work with a lot of colleges and a lot of new graduates, and I hear the same thing again and again. I'll say to them, what job do you want? And they're like, I can do anything. And then I also hear them say, I'm multi-talented. And I'm sure they are. And I felt the same way when I got out of school. But here's the thing, and this is important. Companies don't want someone who can do anything. This is very, very true. Companies don't want someone who can do anything. They want somebody who's a specialist for the position they are filling. So wow them with your other abilities once you get on the job. But for every job you apply for, you want to personify that you're a specialist for that job that they're filling, because that's how they pick people. So now let's start thinking about, what do you really want to do? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through a series of questions. Now, normally, if you were in the Wiser You career system, I would you get access to the Take Action guide that goes along with this. But because this is the free version, you don't get that. So jot these questions down as I go along and answer these questions on your own so that you can really think about what you want. So grab a piece of paper and a pen, or put it, start your notepad on your computer. Because here's the thing, is what I'm going to help you do is, if you are in this situation where you're like, well, I could go everywhere. I could be this. Nah, I can't do that because I don't have the master's degree. Or I could do this, but no, I don't have a certification. Or I could do this, but I don't like the travel involved. Or I could do, when you're in that situation and you could go 100 directions, you don't go anywhere. You stay put. But when you focus, when you have a laser focus on the job that you want, it's so much easier to get that job. So that's what we're going to focus on. And I'll just give you an example of one client I had, was Ryan Story. He was a recent college graduate, or actually he was just getting prepared to college to get to look out in the world. He'd had a little bit of challenges in his background, but nothing that could really prevent him from getting hired. He didn't know exactly what he wanted to do. And so we put him through the Wiser You career system, where we helped him figure out what he wanted to do, figured out his resume, figured out his LinkedIn profile to reflect what he wanted to do. And so then he was able to land a professional level position immediately after graduation. And what was really great about Ryan, he got that job, and it was as a recruiter at a recruiting agency, a big national recruiting agency. When he got into that, he started to realize, okay, this addresses maybe 50% of what I'm interested in, but it's not exactly right. So he had the tools to say, you know what, this isn't quite right for me. So he looked for a different job and got that one, because he knew what he wanted to do based on what he's going to learn today. And so he was able to get another job where he got paid a lot more. He is doing great, only a couple years out of school. So let's talk about you and your action plan. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a series of questions that I really want you to think about, either now as we're going along, or when you're done with this presentation, to really determine what you want. So first of all, what I want you to write down is, what am I passionate about? Are you really interested in making a good living? Or are you really passionate about saving sea turtles? Or are you passionate about helping the homeless? Or what is it that you're really passionate about? So jot that down. And then ask, what do you ultimately want in your life? And I want you to consider that career-wise. Do you want to keep rising up the ranks so that you're an executive level person? Or do you want a job where you can work 9 to 5 and you can go home at 5 and leave the problems there? Do you want something where you can work remotely, etc.? What do you want family-wise? Do you want to have a family, or do you want to travel around the world on your own? What do you want to do life-wise? Do you want to retire early, or do you want to work till you drop dead? What are those things? And oftentimes we don't think about this, but this is so important. And then this is such a good quote from Yogi Berra, who I love. He was born and raised in St. Louis, not too far from where I live, but he had this great line that he's a great Hall of Famer baseball player. If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And even though Yogi got things really fouled up when he said it, this is just so true, because I talked to so many people that they started out, so full of life, and they ended up being an actuary in an insurance company because that's the job that they offered them, but that was never their passion or what they wanted to do. So if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up someplace else. So then ask yourself, okay, I know what my passions are, but what do I enjoy doing? Do you like to build things or fix things? Do you like to help people? Do you like to lead projects, sell, write, design, organize? Me personally, I love to fix stupid. And I love a place that will let me fix stupid. And you know what, they say that's impossible, but I fix stupid in a lot of places just because that's what I love to focus on. But what do you really enjoy doing with your time when you're at work? What are those things that you just love working on? And what are those things that you hate doing? Like for me, doing math, save me. I'm terrible at math, and I'm never going to enjoy it. I can do a budget. I can do, put stuff into an Excel spreadsheet, but I'm never going to want to work for a company where I have to do math. Maybe you don't want to do paperwork or wear suits. Maybe you don't want to write reports or sit at a desk. I mean, I know a lot of people, they don't want to sit at a desk, and then they take a job where they have to do that for the next 60 years. Maybe you love to work by yourself, or maybe you hate to work by yourself. Maybe you hate working with teams. Maybe you don't want to work overtime. But think about those things. Does making a sales call put you into a cold sweat? It does me. Or does it make you jazzed and excited? So think about those things. Do you want to, take care of children, or does the thought of that just repel you? What do you want? And no job is perfect, but knowing what you don't want will help you to choose wisely. And I've done it to myself. I took a job one time where I knew from day one that I was going to hate it. And you know what? I did. I hated that job, and I would stay there for a year because it paid well. But if I had really stood up for myself, I would have waited for a better opportunity. And then think about this. Really write this down. What areas have you excelled, and why did you excel in them? So I remember one time that I was in an organization called Young Life, which is an organization for high school kids and college kids, and I was in that, and we were having a reunion, and I just kind of put the things together, and I kind of kept everybody in the groove and everything like that. And I remember that a woman stood up at the end and she said, "We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Kathy Bernard. She put this all together, and for that, I think." And I thought, somebody called me out for something I excelled at. So think about that for you. Is there certain areas where people keep commenting, "Wow, you're really good at that"? And write those things down. Are you good at charitable efforts? Are you good at, what in your background were you good at? Sports, work successes, etc. And here's the thing is those successes impress employers. And for recent college graduates, I think this is a very interesting chart right here, because a lot of times we think, oh, hey, I got into Princeton. It's the #1 school this year, so that must be most important to what employers want. And I want you to look at this chart and see where college reputation lies in the top of this chart. It's at the bottom. And here's what companies said was the most important to them. So if you're still in school and you still have time, or you're just out of school and you can get that internship, it was the #1 most important thing to those companies. And it makes sense. You had on-the-job experience. #2 was employment during college. Maybe you were working at Pickleman's, and maybe you weren't doing anything very exciting but driving around delivering sandwiches, but you learned customer service, you learned how to interact with people, you knew how to handle problems, you knew how to handle cash, etc. College majors, #3, Not the most important thing, but pretty important. They really like volunteer experience. So put that down on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile. They're also interested in extracurricular activities. Maybe you're in soccer, or maybe you're in a sorority. Relevance of coursework and your college GPA is important, but not as important as those internships. So a lot of times I talk to colleges and I'll talk to the students and I'm like, are you applying for internships? And they're like, no time. I got to apply for that. I got to study for this test, and they don't apply for the internship. And I just want to point out again where internship is on this chart and where your college GPA is. It's not as important. So get those internships. So make yourself apply. Okay, now let's keep going and thinking about what motivates you. Is it money that motivates you? Sometimes we'll turn down a job because it pays like $1,000 less, but what was motivating you was that it was going to change the world. Or do you thrive because of praise, or making things better, or driving change, or continual learning? What is it that jazzes you, gets you excited about the job? Me, I love making things better. That's fixing stupid. And what brings you joy? Is it a sense of accomplishment? Is it exciting work, getting to do constantly challenging work? Is it family or friends or fitness or something else entirely? Maybe it isn't even job related, but what makes you feel good inside? And then ask yourself an important question. Do I want to work for myself, or do I want to work for a company? And that's something that, that I toyed with for a long time before I went out on my own, because it's an important question to ask. And if you want to work for yourself, ask, am I prepared for the challenges? Because it can be low pay for a short term, possibly a long term until you get things worked out. There's financial risks because you've got to put money into the business to get it going, and you got to have money in the bank to be able to afford it. Do you have what it takes for every part of working for yourself? Like, do you know how to do your accounting? Do you know how to do your marketing? Do you know if you need to go to someone else for legal? And are you willing to work really, really hard? And are you willing to fail? Because many times self-employment, it does fail. So ask yourself those questions, and maybe you want to work for a company. And if you do want to work for a company, that's fine. But then think about, what size company do you really want? Do you want to work for a large corporation, some behemoth, or maybe a middle-sized company, or a small company where you get to do lots of different things? Maybe you want to work for a startup where maybe you don't get paid that great, but you get to work on something, and maybe you're going to have the next Facebook. Maybe you want to be a partner with another person, but just think about that. What size company really works best for you? And what type of company do you want to work for? Is it a for-profit, a non-profit? Do you want to work in higher education, or maybe work for a high school? Do you want to work in government, hospitals, military? What kind of company works for you? Maybe it's something that allows you to be outdoors. And then think about what kind of industry. There's all kinds, but a couple of sites that are really good, and write this down. Like I said, I'm going to send you the slides, but not the Take Action Guide, so you might want to just jot these down. OpenSecrets.org has a list of different kind of industries. And then BLS.gov, which is the Department of Labor, it lists different industries so that you can learn about the industries, what kind of pay is in those industries, if they're thriving or dying, that sort of thing. So sometimes, surprise me, and you don't care what kind of industries you're in. But for me, I don't want to work in healthcare. Oh, please don't make me smell that alcohol smell or whatever. I would hate that. And maybe I'm not too interested in defense, but maybe I'm open to some of the other things. Then think about, what level of pressure are you comfortable with? Do you love a constant fast pace, but maybe not such a fast pace where you're constantly stressed out? Maybe you like something a little slower and steady, or maybe somewhere in between. What kind of pace are you comfortable with, or what kind of pressure? If you're in sales, what kind of pressure do you want on that? Because that can be a real pressure cooker. And then what level of risk are you comfortable with? Do you want that steady paycheck? And hey, as a person who works for themselves, I got to say, I kind of miss steady paycheck, but I also love working for myself. Or do you want something where you risk more and earn more? Maybe you want to be in stocks and bonds, or maybe you want to be in sales or something where there's a lot of risk. And maybe there's a different kind of risk. Maybe you want to move to a developing nation and save the world, even if you go broke and get some sort of disease. What level of risk are you comfortable with? And then think about, where do you want to live? If you're a recent college grad, maybe you can live with your folks, but ask them, do they know that? Maybe you want to be by yourself, share expenses with others, other cities, other countries, or surprise me. And I'm in a situation right now. My daughter lives in another city. She's my only child. My husband's retiring. He's figuring out he wants to live someplace warmer, and I'm like wanting to keep where I am. And what do you do? And so I'm in that situation right now myself. And it's actually kind of exciting because I could do anything, but what do I really want? And if you're a recent college graduate, I just want to point out, if you're trying to live on your own, which I tried to do when I first got out of school, that was really tough because housing takes a huge chunk, but utilities, transportation, savings, all of that really eats it up. It's amazing how little money that we all have after expenses. And if you're working for yourself, these things are still there in many ways and can be extremely expensive to do. So think about that before making the leap. And then think about, what kind of work location do you want? Do you want to work from home or near home? There's remote jobs available, but not always kind of what you want or paying what you want. Do you want a job where you can hop on mass transit, or where you get to travel or commute easily, downtown, suburbs, safe and free parking? What is it where you really want to work? And write that down too, because like, it's funny. I always say, I'm not set in my ways, but don't send me any place that's more than a half hour from home, or that I'm sitting in traffic. I'm not interested. What kind of work atmosphere do you want? Do you want something where there's a good corporate hierarchy, where your pecking order is, what you're supposed to do? Or do you like something a little bit freer, where it's a very, flat organizational chart, and nobody has titles, and everybody's kind of doing their part? Or do you like offices or cubicles, an open office environment? Maybe you want to work by yourself. Maybe you want to work outdoors, like I've said before. Maybe you want standard hours, or maybe you're a big night owl like I am. So what kind of atmosphere do you want? And then what kind do you not want? Would that kind of corporate hierarchy drive you crazy? Yeah, for me, it kind of did. Maybe where you don't want to work with customers all day because they're mean, and you don't want to work in the complaint department. But maybe you're not picky. Okay, so now, after you go through all of those, and I really encourage you to do that, go through all those questions, kind of determine what you want. Then after that, then you want to start creating your career brand and figuring out what job titles match your skills, your interests, and your work preferences. So some of that work that you're doing already, figuring that out, is going to kind of help you determine, well, I like working for a corporation. I want to work for a middle-sized corporation. I want to work indoors. I want to work with a computer. I want to do these things. And then there's a couple of sites, and as I said, write this down. You're going to get these slides, but not the Take Action Guide. But one site you want to look up is Career One Stop, or careerinfonet.org/skills, and learn what jobs match what you want. And then there's an iSeek reality check. If you go to iSeek.org/careers, go to the reality check and see if those jobs that you're interested in pay enough to make it worth your while. Then also think, should you choose this occupation? And there's a quiz at careerplanning.about.com, which you could say, hey, is this good? Kind of going through some of those same types of thoughts. Hey, you know what? This is where I could be, in the infantry, in the army, but I don't like being shot at. Maybe it isn't right for you, and you can determine that. And one thing that I really want to point out is that even if you kind of narrow that down to what the job titles are, many job titles vary. So, for example, if you wanted to be a copywriter, one thing, copywriter could be spelled one word or could be spelled two. but also there's variations on almost every job. So there might be advertising copywriter, junior copywriter. There might be marketing assistant or marketing specialist, which could be pretty much identical to copywriter, but they call it something else. Now there's content management and content specialist, digital strategist, marketing strategist. There's a lot of titles that may be similar. Same thing in like a program manager or project specialist or project manager, junior project manager, project coordinator. I just want to point out that there's very many different job titles, and you want to play those up in your resume, and you also want to play those up in your LinkedIn profile. Plan to apply for all the jobs that relate to your title. And for seasoned workers, maybe where you've attained a higher level, there may be very different job titles for that too. So like advertising director or manager, there still could be copywriter, and you still could apply for that, but you might want to go for the higher level jobs. And if you're like senior project or project manager or project director rather than manager, plan to apply for all the jobs that relate. And a lot of times with seasoned job workers, they're like, well, I can't get a job, so I'm going to apply for the specialist position, even though that only wants you 1 year of experience. And I think, you know what, they're not going to want you for that either. I would go for the bigger jobs because they're not going to believe that you're willing to take that low-level position. So I would say in general, if you're a seasoned worker, try to go for the higher thing. If you're completely changing what you're looking for, you may have to go lower, or you may want to take your experience and say that even if it's different, why that makes you uniquely qualified for that higher level job. It doesn't always relate. My main thing with that is it doesn't always work. If you're like, well, no one will hire me for the director level position, so I'm going to go for the specialist position. They're not going to be any more likely to consider you for that. So apply well for the higher level jobs. And then think really hard, which of my strengths makes me a good match for the job? Do I have the right education, job experience? What about those internships, your hobbies, talents, abilities? What training have you had both in when you were at a company and outside of it or at college? What volunteer work have you had? So identify all those strengths that make you a really good match for the job. And then really promote those in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And so one thing I want to say on that, a lot of times people don't put what their strengths are in their resume. So one thing I recommend is putting up at the top, making a list of your strengths that relate to the job. And then think about what skills and education that you lack to attain the job. This is particularly important for, well, new grads and seasoned workers. A lot of times I'll talk to seasoned workers and I'll be like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, I was a corporate communications person, so the jobs now are called digital strategist. So I think I'll apply for those jobs. And I'm like, well, do you have social media experience? And they'll say, well, no, but I'll learn it if they hire me. Now you can kind of see the pain point in that right there. They don't have to hire you to train you to do that. So learn the skills now. Take classes. Libraries, contact your library. Oftentimes you can take free classes through the library that are online. Like, for example, Linked Learning through LinkedIn Learning. You can take all sorts of classes related to jobs for free through your library. Don't use the excuse that you don't have something, learn it. Watch YouTube videos. I always say if you can learn how to build a bomb on YouTube, you certainly can learn how to use Excel. You're working on YouTube. Join LinkedIn groups and Google Plus communities, Facebook groups, etc. Subscribe to free topical e-newsletters. One thing that I did is I created samples to prove my abilities. That really made a difference because it wasn't just book learning. I put it into samples to prove it. Shadow an expert and compile and keep what you learn. One thing I did is every time I'd learn something new, I'd put it into a Word document about that particular topic. Like if it was about public relations or communications, I would keep a file on that. So once you've figured out what you want to do, then I encourage you to summarize it and get it kind of short. I'm passionate about providing affordable assisted living services for disadvantaged seniors, and I'm seeking an assisted living center administration position. I want to work full-time in a large urban residential care center on the south side of Chicago. So this took like all of this person's interests and put it into a paragraph. But after that, then I want you to shorten it to a sentence so that you can say it to anyone. And I want you to be able to practice it. I'm seeking an assisted living center administrator job on the south side of Chicago. Because when you talk to people and you have a short answer like that, they're going to remember, oh, who's the gal that wanted an assisted living job? I just heard of a job on the south side of Chicago. Here's another example. I'm seeking a process control electrical engineering job in research and development for a specialty chemical manufacturer in Atlanta. Something short and sweet so people can remember. If you're pursuing multiple titles, and I encourage you to pursue no more than 3, better 2, better even 1. I'm seeking a marketing or sales job, preferably in pharmaceutical or healthcare in New York City. Because anything, the harder you make it, the people will go, I have no idea what that person wants. Okay, so maybe this all sounds simple, but really, I really don't think this is all that simple. You need to take that time today, write answers to each of those questions that I brought up. Do your research about what jobs would really interest you. Put that all down and come to terms with what you really want so that you can say it with power to other people. But it sounds simple, but many job seekers don't determine what they want, and then they take jobs that they hate, and then they take the next one, and they never work in a job that they love. And if there's one thing I can say that I think millennials have taught the rest of the world is that they demand what they want. And I think that we should too. We should say, you know what? I worked for 30 years in banking. I didn't enjoy one day of it. I'm going to pursue what I want. You should pursue what makes that fulfills that passion. And that doesn't have to happen to you to not get what you want. And that's why I put the Wiser You career system together, where we start with what I taught today, where you get the take action guide so you could fill out all those things that I did. But it goes through, now once you figured out what you want, here's how to apply. Here's how to do your resume so you score really high for that. Here's how to do your cover letter. Here's how to do your LinkedIn profile, which is hugely important because 97% of companies use it to find or check out people. How to enlist those recruiters so that they can help you get that job, how to network your way into that industry or field, how to interview for the job so you score really high, how to negotiate even if you haven't been in that position before, negotiate to get the maximum amount, and then so you hit the ground running and excel on the job. So it's just a very step-by-step process. So go out to wiseryou.com/career system if you're interested in that, because it will train you based on research about what's the best step every step of the way. So it not only has the videos that like what I'm doing right now, but the take action guides and exercises, the templates, so that you can fill in the blanks on your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, so you know exactly what to say and do. So, as I said, you get the video, the take action guide, which is a 1-page thing that says, do these 5 things. Now you're ready to go on to applying for jobs. So you're doing it all very systematically. So to save 25% off on the annual thing, go out to wiseryou.com/JTT to learn about that. So go to wiseryou.com, learn all about it, and then register at wiseryou.com/JTT to take action on what you learned today. Also with Wiser You, if you're not interested in the career system, no problem. Just want you to know we also do career coaching. So if you still can't figure out what you want to do, I can work with you on that. And I can also help you to take every one of those steps individually so you know exactly what to do. We also do interview prep so you score really high for your interviews. And we also can work with you on what exactly to say on salary negotiation. I also train people individually on LinkedIn training, or I also train groups. I do people's resumes, or I can radically revamp your resume to score high on applicant tracking systems, which are used by 94% of companies. I also do people's LinkedIn profiles for them so they score really high. There's a real trick to LinkedIn, and we've cracked it. And then also I do a thing called Recruiter Reach, where I can reach out to recruiters on your behalf in your city or in your industry to say, hey, here's somebody who's available. So anyway, if you're interested in any of that, give Susan and my department a call, or contact us at info@wiseru.com. I'll now open it up for any questions that you have, or any comments or any concerns that you have about this. As I said, there is not. I will be providing the slides to you, but there is no take action guide since this is part of the free program. But if you have any questions, please type that in there. Oh, I see somebody did. Let me see here. Okay, how do we deal with the overqualified issue? What do we say to address this or to tackle the concern about high salary? Okay, so that's a really great question. How do you handle the overqualified? I think one of the best things to do on that is to be really honest with the company and to say something like this. And this is, I actually used this wording with a company and it worked. And I would say, I see that this position is for director of communication, employee communications. I have been in employee communications and I was in leadership of corporate communications, but my passion was employee communications, this lower level job. And I no longer require making the money or having the title that I had before. I really want to work in employee communications. That was my passion. That's what I loved. And I understand that it may not pay what I was making before, but that's okay. I want to do what I love. And I think if you can say it that way, they'll believe you. So that's what I would really work on, that is making sure that you're convincing that you can do it at the lower salary. The good news on some things, they are starting to consider seasoned workers more than they have before because they're getting desperate. And I'm so happy because it's been a real company market for a long time where they really kind of mistreated people. I think they paid badly for a long time, and they're having to start paying more, and they're having to start considering seasoned workers. So if you've been discouraged before, come back at it again. Maybe take off the first couple of jobs off of your resume. But I don't think you need to be ashamed or worried about the fact that you have seasoned work. It's really good. They like the fact that you have experience and abilities. They're worried about the salary. When it comes down to it, that's what they're worried about it. And what you have to do is be very convincing that you want to do that piece of the puzzle and that you're willing to take less money for it because you no longer require being in a high level position anymore. I think that's what you need to do on that. Now, that being said, I still think that you can try to get as much money as you can. You know, what the heck? Try for it because they're getting desperate. And I love seeing that happen. It's getting to be an employee market. So go for it and ask for you want. Let's see. How do we, and that was from Lynn. Thanks, Lynn. It's good to have you on here. Okay. Yeah. And so if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and type it in now. But if not, my email is Kathy@wiseru.com. So feel free to ask me a question there. If you're interested in any of our services, please reach out at the number or the info@wiseru. Thanks for tuning in. And if I can be a help to you, please let me know. Bye-bye.